To order. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Please be seated. You ready, Ms. Preston?
Yes, I am.
Great. All right. Deputy Murphy reports that all our jurors are here. They made it through roads blocked by down wires and trees and whatnot, so they're ready to go. Mr. Rucker, is the state ready?
Yes, sir.
Anything we need to talk about before we get Ms. Carter back in here?
No, sir.
Okay, is she right outside?
Yes.
Great. Anything from the defense before we get started? Okay, let's bring Ms. Carter in and let's bring the jury in.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All rise. Your Honor, all jury members are present and accountable.
Thank you, Deputy Murphy. You all may be seated. Happy Tuesday morning. Anyone lose power last night? No. From about 11 to 3, we had no power. And once the thunder and lightning started, I got 2 dogs and a little boy joining me in bed, so it was real cozy. But fortunately, the power came back on, so the alarm went off, and here I am. I appreciate you all getting here. I know some roads were hard to get through and whatnot, so if any of you left extra early just to make it, thank you, because we are ready to continue. And I understand that today, once again, we can only stay till 5, so we will try to use as much of the 9 to 5 as we can, and maybe we'll talk towards the end of the day about what your Saturday looks like. But for now, we still have Ms. Carter on the stand. Good morning, Ms. Carter.
Good morning.
Ms. Carter remains under oath, the oath she took yesterday, to testify truthfully. And Mr. Rucker will continue with his direct examination.
Thank you, Judge.
You bet.
Okay. And good morning. I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I got set up. Good morning, counsel. And good morning, Ms. Carter.
Good morning.
And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Since we last broke last night, you and I have not had any conversations or anything about your testimony or your appearance here today.
No, we have not.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to ask you, when you told the jurors yesterday that you helped to redecorate the defendant's law office at Fisher Phillips, when did that occur?
I can't remember how many. It was maybe somewhere around 5 years ago, probably.
Okay.
May have been longer.
Okay. And can you explain how it is you got to be in a position to help to redecorate his law office?
Well, I had decorated his other one, or redecorated it, while they were still in the other office building before they moved, so I helped pick out some things for this one. I decorated the barn, the saloon.
And you also decorated the saloon there at the ranch.
Yes.
What was the theme primarily for the decor at the saloon?
It was a Western theme. It was color schemed after a 100-year-old bar that's in Fort Worth.
Okay. And were there guns as part of the decor there in the saloon?
Yes.
About how many would you say?
Oh, there was a gun motif on the chandelier, and there were paintings that had horses and cowboys and guns in it. I remember the chandelier, probably
Okay.
picture frames.
Okay. Were there any guns mounted on the wall?
No,
Okay.
no, I don't think so.
Okay. Let me ask you, at the time of this incident in September of 2016, what did you know about the defendant's status at his law firm?
I knew nothing.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors in September of 2016, based on what you observed with respect to the defendant, did you see any signs of any financial distress?
No,
Did you notice any change in his level of lifestyle in September of 2016?
no.
Now, before this incident, can you tell the jurors, how would you best describe your feelings towards the defendant before the shooting?
Quite fond of him. He was never anything but nice to me.
Okay, let me have you keep your voice up. You don't have your mic on, do you?
No.
Okay, so try to lean into the microphone and make sure you speak loud, okay?
He was always kind.
He was always kind to you?
Yes.
And I thought you said earlier you were quite fond of him.
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors before the shooting, how had you seen him treat Diane?
Very kind and like a Southern gentleman.
Now, after you left the hospital with your husband and the defendant on Monday morning, September the 26th, why did you go back to the condominium with the defendant?
He had asked me to help him to inform people and friends about Diane's death.
And that was okay with you?
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this. Were you afraid of him in any way?
No, I was not.
Now, I want to ask you about the statement that you told us about that occurred at the hospital,
Okay.
where the defendant said to you to indicate that you were just a family friend. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, when he told you that he wanted you to make the statement to law enforcement because he was looking out for you, did you believe that?
What's the relevance of whether she believed it?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll ask a different
Okay.
question.
Generally, witnesses don't comment on the believability of other things. So
I understand.
sounds like you'll ask a different question.
I will.
Great.
When he said that to you, why didn't you do it?
I didn't understand why I needed to make up a story when there wasn't anything. There was no reason to make up another story besides that I'd driven them to the emergency room.
Besides what?
That I'd driven them to the emergency room.
Now, can you tell the jurors if you had actually done what the defendant asked you to do,
It's speculation.
Okay. I'll let you finish the question, but it is framed.
I'm framing it, okay, all right,
Questions
all
come
right,
always in a surprising way.
I understand.
This would have to be really surprising.
okay. The only people in the SUV when you arrived at the hospital was who?
Me and Tex and Diane.
Okay. And if you were not in the SUV, who would have arrived at the hospital?
Well, I'll allow, this is almost a math problem, but I'll allow her to do the subtraction problem that the question calls for.
And you're going to give me something to do with that too.
If you have simple math problems like that,
I can't do complex.
Neither can I.
good, let's not try
I get
that.
like slime rule out.
You understand my question?
No, I,
Okay. If you were not in the vehicle when it arrived at the hospital, who would have been in the vehicle?
just Tex and Diane.
Tex and Diane. Now, you told the jurors that you know Steve Maples.
I do know Steve Maples.
About how long have you known him?
Oh, about 8 years.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors in all of the visits that you had to the ranch, was Steve Maples a frequent guest at any of the events?
No, I'd never seen him there before.
Never.
Never.
Was he a frequent guest at events that occurred at the condo downtown in Atlanta?
No.
Had you ever seen him there before?
Before,
The shooting.
no.
Why did you hesitate for a second about that? Have you seen him there after the shooting?
Yes.
Now, with respect to the statements that you were asked to make to the public, can you tell the jurors, did the defendant ever tell you why he wanted you to make those statements?
You mean the deposition, like talking to Steve Maples? No, and that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask him the day that I went to the flag football game 2 weeks afterwards, and I never got to it.
Beyond an answer to the question, it's answering a question that has not been asked.
Okay. I think she just put a punctuation mark on there that ends the answer. I'll allow the answer to stand.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, at any time, did he ever tell you what to say to the police
No,
or to the district attorney's office?
no.
Now, when you told the jurors that you left your home with Tom on October the 5th to go to Dale Cardwell's house, why didn't you just tell the defendant no?
I didn't think no would be good enough.
And so you left your own home.
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, your friend Dale Cardwell, do you know if he is also acquainted with Mr. Billy Corey?
Yes, he is.
And how about Diane McIver?
Yes.
And how about the defendant?
Yes,
He knows all three of them.
he does.
Now, can you tell the jurors, when you arrived at Dale Cardwell's house on October the 5th, did you tell him anything about the circumstances of why you were there?
I did.
And can you tell us, what did you tell him?
That Tex and Steve wanted me to do a deposition, and I didn't want to do it, and I just was uncomfortable staying at home. I felt like somebody might show up there.
Did you share any of the details with Mr. Cardwell about the events that occurred in the SUV?
I'm sure that I did. I don't remember.
Okay. Did you share with Mr. Cardwell the events that occurred at the hospital, and specifically about the statement that the defendant made to you regarding saying that you were a family friend and had not been in the vehicle? Did you share that with him on that day?
I think I did. I'm pretty sure that I did.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And your response?
I didn't ask that question before. I asked her if she told Mr. Cardwell what happened. Now my question is, what did you tell him actually happened? If you told him, now tell us what you told him.
Okay. I'll let you go forward with that one.
You understand?
The details about what happened,
Okay.
since he was helping me out.
Okay. Is Mr. Cardwell a person that you trust?
Yes, he is.
Now, with respect to the statement that the defendant made to you at the hospital about saying that you were not driving the SUV, that you were just a family friend who had arrived there, can you tell the jurors who is the first person that you told? Well, strike that. Let me ask you a better question. Did you tell anyone about what the defendant told you to do at the hospital?
Yes.
Okay. And who is the first person that you told that to?
Billy Corey.
Okay. When did you tell Billy Corey what the
Mon-
defendant said at the hospital?
On Monday.
Do you remember what you told him?
Yes, I told him everything.
Okay. Do you remember who was the second person that you told?
Janie Calhoun.
Did you ever mention it to your husband?
Yes, I did.
And you just said you mentioned it to Mr. Cardwell.
Yes.
Now, you have given several documented statements with respect to this case.
Yes,
Is that
I
fair?
have.
Okay. Can you tell the jurors who is the first, or when was the first time you would have given kind of what we would consider like a formal statement or interview in this case?
That night at the Atlanta Police Department.
Okay. And you told us about two APD officers that came to the hospital.
Yes.
Do you know what their names are?
One of them was Ricker. I don't know the other one's name.
Okay. Can you tell me the race of the officer that you know is Ricker?
He was the plain clothes. He was white.
Okay. The white male?
Yes.
Okay. And what is the race of the second officer, the one that was in the uniform?
He was black.
Okay. You don't remember his name?
No.
And When you spoke to them and gave them details about the events, where were you? Where did you give them?
At the Atlanta Police Department.
Okay. And about how much time had passed since the event before you talked to them?
About maybe 2 hours.
Okay. And at the time that you spoke to them, did you know that your interview was being video and audio recorded?
Yes.
How long did your interview with these two initial officers last?
Probably 10 minutes.
And I'm going to ask you about a specific word, and can you tell the jurors, when you spoke to those officers, did you ever use the word scary, S-C-A-R-Y, to describe the people that you saw when you exited 7585 North? Did you ever use that word?
I don't recall.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, when is the second time, well, strike that, I'm sorry, let me ask you a question. When you spoke to the APD officers there at that time, did you tell them about the statement that the defendant had made to you in the hospital regarding telling the police that you were not in the vehicle, that you had just arrived as a family friend?
The two that we were just talking about, Ricker?
Yes.
No. We didn't get that far in the interview.
Now, I think you told us yesterday that the interview, there was something that happened during the interview that caused the officers to get up and leave.
Yes.
And what happened that caused the officers to get up and leave?
He said he was expecting a phone call. I know now that it was because Diane had died.
And when those two officers got up and left, did another officer come in?
Eventually.
And can you tell the jurors that night, did you meet Detective Darren Smith?
Yes.
Who do you know Detective Darren Smith to be?
A homicide detective with the Atlanta Police Department.
And did you give a statement to Detective Darren Smith?
I did.
About how many hours now, or strike that, let me ask you a better question. How much time had passed since you learned of the death of Diane when you talked to Detective Smith?
More than an hour.
And can you tell the jurors, at the time that you were speaking to him, what was your state of mind?
Distraught. Very sad.
Did you realize that the statement you were giving to Detective Smith was also video and audio recorded?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell the jurors how long did your interview with Detective Smith last?
Several hours.
I think it was several hours.
Yes.
And when you talked to Detective Smith, can you tell the jurors, did you tell him about the statement that the defendant had made to you in the hospital?
No, I did not.
And can you explain to us why not?
I was still very disturbed by it, and it sounded very bad because my impression was,
Let me object to that,
Okay.
how it sounds.
Maybe she's searching for the words, but I think her answer is allowable. I think she's trying to explain using the best verbiage that she can.
Okay, just as we learned yesterday, the word impression, the defense understandably interposes objections. This is a slightly different setting than some of the questions yesterday, but if you want to ask more about what you just asked about, maybe we'll see where that goes. Okay.
Did I hear you say that you didn't tell Detective Smith because you thought it sounded bad?
yes,
Sounded bad for whom?
Tex.
And, explain to the jurors why that concerns you at all, that it sounded bad for Tex.
Again, what's the relevance of why, the explanation of what she thought about that, again, is unexpressed.
The explanation is,
Well, don't say what the explanation is.
I know we should approach.
The question is, why should she be able to explain why she thought it looked bad for Mr. McIver?
Okay.
Mr. Harvey is saying it's not relevant why she thought it looked bad. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but her sense of why it looked bad really isn't relevant to what we're working through here.
I got you.
That's what I heard Mr. Harvey say.
Right. Let me work around it.
Okay.
Okay. At the time that you were talking to Detective Smith, how did you feel about the defendant? What was her state of feelings toward the defendant?
I felt bad for him. I was angry, but I felt bad for him.
You felt bad for him? Now, in February of 2017, a couple of months after the shooting, did you have an opportunity to meet with me?
Yes,
Was that the first time that you and I had ever met?
it was.
And can you tell the jurors, where did we meet?
At some impound out near Charlie Brown Airport.
And can you tell the jurors, who did you meet with, other than me? Or who was there, is probably a better question.
Well, Darren Smith was there, the homicide detective. You were there. There was I can't remember, something, an SKI name, Linda
Donikowski?
Yes. She was there. Nico?
Rico?
Rico, sorry, Rico. He was there. I can't remember who else was there. It seems like there was somebody else there.
Did you meet Investigator Jackson?
Terry Jackson, yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, did we have an opportunity to speak with you at that time?
Yes.
Do you remember where we were when we talked?
Standing outside the vehicle,
What vehicle?
the Expedition.
This impound lot, is that where the Expedition that you were riding in that night was being kept?
Yes.
And at that time, did you realize that Detective Darren Smith was audio recording our conversation? Did you know that?
No, I did not.
And can you tell the jurors, at that time, did you tell Detective Darren Smith?
Let me object. Can we come to the sidebar here?
We can, we haven't had one yet today. Might as well get going.
Okay. I'm sorry. Could you tell the jurors how long did we have a chance to meet there at the vehicle?
It was several hours.
Okay. And did you see Rico videotape our exchange?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, shortly thereafter, did you have the opportunity to actually come to the DA's office for a sit-down interview?
Yes.
Okay. And when you came to the office, who came with you?
I came by myself sometimes, but then Jeremy Citron did come with me once.
Okay. And who was that?
He's an attorney.
Okay. And did he represent you at the time?
No, he's a friend of my nephew, so he was just coming to be supportive.
Okay. And during that interview, can you tell the jurors that generally what do we talk about?
Some of the incidents that, about the shooting and about her will.
Okay. And at that time, did you agree to go on a drive with us to show us the route?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And then of course, in preparation for trial, you've been down here a couple of times.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, I want to ask you a question about, or some questions about what you know regarding the defendant's familiarity with guns. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you tell the jurors, you've been down to the ranch, you say hundreds of times. Can you tell the jurors while down there at the ranch, did you ever have the opportunity to see the defendant handle and operate guns?
Often.
Often. And to you, what does often mean?
A lot.
If you had to put a number on it.
Maybe 100 times. We didn't shoot every time we went down there, but it was probably like maybe every other time.
Okay. And when you would shoot down at the ranch, where did you shoot?
Out in the woods, there was a range that was a big mound of dirt that we could put milk bottles or targets or something on, and the mountain of dirt stopped the bullets.
Okay. And during those occasions, you would actually, with your own two eyes, have the opportunity to see the defendant actually handle firearms.
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what you know about his attention to safety when handling guns?
He was very safety conscious. Would always tell me not to do something.
Like what? Not to do what, for instance?
Fire a gun while somebody was standing like in front of where the gun was. Like not right in front, but even if they were off to the side.
Okay.
Or making sure I didn't point it in the wrong direction.
He would tell you that.
Yes.
And did you ever see the defendant handle guns in the presence of young Austin?
Yes.
About how many times you think you've seen that?
40, 50.
40 or 50. And can you tell the jurors whether or not, in your presence, the defendant actually would assist, train, or teach young Austin how to actually fire a gun?
Yes.
And can you tell us anything about his safety consciousness when it came to having young Austin handle guns and shoot them?
I understand the question, but let me object to it. the way it's framed, safety consciousness.
Just the word she used.
I'll allow it. I think we're in an area that's appropriate for you to explore.
You understand?
Yes.
Okay. Share with the jurors what you experienced or what you saw.
He was very good with training and, teaching the proper ways to handle a weapon.
And you've actually seen young Austin fire a gun out there at the ranch?
He's a good shot.
Say it again.
He's a good shot,
And who taught him to be a good shot?
Tex.
Can you tell the jurors how many guns have you seen out at the ranch? Rifles, handguns? If you had to estimate.
A couple of dozen.
Can you tell the jurors where they kept?
In gun safe in the garage.
Can you tell the jurors, does the defendant also have additional guns at the condominium there in Atlanta? Or did he?
Yes.
About approximately how many?
Four or five, maybe. Those are ones I knew of.
The ones you knew of? And did you also see ammunition at the ranch for the guns?
Oh, yes.
Why do you say, oh, yes?
Because we would go through a lot of it.
Where was it kept, the ammunition?
I think there was some ammunition in the gun safes, and there was a big, canvas bag that had ammo in it, and the ear protection and eye protection.
The defendant had all of that in order to allow, strike that. Let me ask a better question. I don't want Mr. Harvey to get out. The eye protection and the ear protection, what was it designed to do?
To protect your ears and your eyes from shells that would fly out of the 9mm, because they're hot and they hurt, and the guns are loud.
The handgun, the Smith & Wesson .38 revolver that we showed to the jurors yesterday, you've seen that gun in the SUV before?
Correct.
Can you tell the jurors, have you seen any other kind of gun other than that one in the SUV, that one before?
No.
You also told us that this incident was the first time you had ridden in the SUV with the McIvers down to the ranch. Is that still true?
Yes.
Did you know Austin to ride in the SUV with the McIvers down to the ranch?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors, have you ever seen the defendant store a handgun in a plastic bag before?
No.
I skipped this question, I'm sorry. About how old was Austin when you seen him actually shoot a real gun? For the first time?
10. 9, 10.
Okay. Is the defendant a good shot with a gun?
Yes.
Did you tell me an example regarding his ability to shoot involving a water bottle?
Yes.
Can you tell the jurors that story?
He could throw a water bottle up and shoot it up in the air. Throw it up and then shoot it and hit it.
Throw a water bottle up in the air,
And shoot it and hit it.
shoot it and hit it before it hit the ground.
Yes.
I'll change gears for just a second. And I want to ask you, did Diane McIver ever loan you any money?
Yes.
In the 40-year history of your relationship with her, on how many occasions would you say she has loaned you money?
Over a dozen times, more than a dozen times. I've never thought about how many.
Okay, and just trying to keep your voice up because you're trailing a little,
Okay, sorry.
You said about a dozen times.
Or more than a dozen.
Now, did you consider yourself to be her best friend?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors when Diane McIver would loan you money, would she make you like sign any documents or anything?
Oh, we signed documents just like you were at the bank.
You would sign documents just like you're at the bank,
Yeah, with collateral.
with collateral.
Yes.
Would she charge you interest?
Of course.
Why do you say of course?
That was just the way that's just the way we did it. I was comfortable with it and she was.
Now, these loans, were they kind of like, like if you don't pay them back, like that's okay, girl, we just take care of it later kind of loans?
You did.
Stop. I like the question.
I'm sorry.
I said, I like the question, but what's your objection to it?
Suggested answer, it was filled with facts and evidence. I mean, there are 100 objections that I would.
Thank you for not doing all 100.
Making this, so that's just.
Okay. I don't believe it suggested an answer. It was a colorful question, but I'll let you. Do you remember the question?
Yes.
Great, you can answer it. Oh. Restroom? All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to keep it real short. If you don't need a break, just stand up and be at ease. If you do need a break, jurors, go take that break. And we'll leave everyone hanging as to what the answer is to the type of loan it was.
Rise for the jurors.
Correct.
And so is there a portion of that loan that is still outstanding?
Yes, yes, it is.
Do you have any idea about how much?
2,000?
Now, can you tell the jurors, was there ever any communication between yourself and the defendant after the death of Diane with respect to that car loan?
Yes.
And can you tell the jurors what happened?
One day I got a note that I needed to send Terry Brown a check. That was Diane's administrative assistant. And I called him after that.
And what'd you say to him?
I told him that I didn't have any intention of not paying that loan because it was actually loaned to me out of a specific account.
Okay. And what did he say back to you?
Are we talking about Terry Brown talking with you or Mr. McIver talking with you?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. McIver.
I'm sorry. I didn't make that clear. But yes, you were speaking to Mr. McIver then, right?
Right.
Okay. And then when you told him you had every intention of making good on the loan, what did he say back to you? If you remember.
He said that he was going to ease up on it and for me not to worry about it.
Okay. So let me show you an exhibit. I've already shown it to defense counsel. It states exhibit number 323, and there's a 323A. Any objection?
Yeah, I gotta have an objection to this entire line now. It's 401. What's the relevance?
Well, I don't want to state it in front of the jurors, but
Right.
I have told Mr. Harvey.
No, I don't know what 323? That can't be the right number.
Hold on.
I don't mean to tell you your own numbers, but 323 ought to be something real different.
It's 317.
317.
317.
Okay,
I'm 317A.
got it. So the line of questioning I find is relevant. I don't know what 317 is. If it pertains to the line of questioning, then Mr. Harvey may say, hey, I've got the 401 objection, I understand your ruling. He may have different objections as to 317 in particular. I haven't seen. Same objection, 401?
Yes.
Okay. Overruled. 317 is admitted.
Let me show you this exhibit. This exhibit, number 317. Have you seen that before?
Yes,
And do you know how I got that exhibit?
I gave it to you
And when did you give it to me?
a week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay. And what is it?
It's a note. It's the note to me
And what note?
saying that Terry.
Don't tell me what it says
oh,
first.
oh,
Just
okay.
tell me, kind of characterize it. You mentioned you received the note from the defendant. Is that the note?
Yes,
Okay. And can you tell the jurors over the years, have you had the opportunity to observe his handwriting?
yes,
Okay. And can you say with any degree of confidence that you recognize the handwriting on the note?
yes.
And can you tell the jurors whose handwriting is on the note?
Tex McIver's.
Okay. And is that the original note?
Yes, it is.
Has it been altered or changed in any way from the time that you received it from the defendant?
No.
I would tender states exhibit number 317, which is the note, and just stating my place at 317. Well, I won't do that. Let me lay foundation. Look behind the note and look behind.
Yeah, I thought it had been
Oh,
admitted
yes.
over the 401 objection.
Sorry.
Okay. It's extra admitted now, still a 401 objection.
And can you read for the jurors exactly what does that note say?
It says, Danny, Terry needs check for $272.48.
And 272.48, what amount does that reflect?
I'm assuming it's my car payment. It had come out automatically, so
Stop.
We object to the assumption.
Okay.
I'd forgotten what the payment was.
Okay. And I'm just showing to the jurors, this is State 17A, that's the envelope. And
Yes.
now, can you tell the jurors, do you have a, do you work, strike that, bad question. At the time of this incident, did you work in a salon in Buckhead?
I did.
And is there a person who worked at the salon with you by the name of Richard?
Yes.
What is Richard's full name?
Actually, Richard Vincent Muller.
And how do you know how to spell his last name?
Muller.
How long have you known Richard Muller?
25, 28 years.
And what was Richard Muller's role at the salon?
He's a hairdresser.
And can you tell the jurors, did he specifically dress anyone's hair that you knew? That's a part of this case.
Yes.
Okay. Who?
Diane, me, Tex, Janie Calhoun, Austin, Phyllis Gable.
Okay. Sounds like you might have been like kind of like a group hairstyle or something.
I do good PR.
You do good PR. Okay. Okay. I want to show you some photographs. Give me 1 second, Jeff.
Sure.
Your Honor, after speaking with Mr. Harvey, I would like to identify some photographs to show the witness to see if we can lay the proper foundation.
Okay.
All right. There are State's Exhibits 55, 57, 58, 59, 60, 64, 66, 67, and 68.
55, 57 through 60, 64, and 66 through 68.
Correct.
Great. And right now, these are being shown for purposes of potential identification.
That's correct.
Okay.
I want you to take a look at all of these photographs, okay? And I'd like to have you look at them individually, one by one.
Okay.
Okay, and after you look at, okay,
Alrighty.
all right. So this is State's Exhibit number 55, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now as you look at State's 55, I'm sorry, hold on 1 second, let me just check with Mr. Harvey. The objections are to 64 and 66. Okay, so let me do this. Let me help identify, maybe speed this up just a little bit. photo, but I would like for you to help identify to the judge how it is that you recognize what's in that photo.
I've been in this room.
Okay? And you have seen the things that are shown in that photograph
Yes, I have.
with your own two eyes?
Yes.
About how many times do you think you've been in that room?
Dozens.
Okay? And can you say to the judge that that photograph fairly and accurately reflects what you have seen in that room on dozens of occasions?
Yes.
At this time, Your Honor, I would tender in the evidence states exhibit number 64.
I'm eternally debating that you can't hear.
Okay, I appreciate not having to hear it.
Quick side.
Okay, should we do 66 as well?
It's going to be the same thing.
Okay, so we won't repeat this. Okay.
Right.
Okay, great.
Okay, I got one more question for you, okay? In the photograph that is states exhibit number 64, you
Yes.
see it?
Yes.
The container that is in that photograph, have you ever seen inside of that container?
No.
Okay.
You know, container sort of a vague word.
Yeah.
Maybe you can point to it
Okay.
with Mr. Harvey up there if he wants to see it. Okay.
Yes, that right there. Have you ever seen inside that before?
No.
You haven't?
I don't think, no.
Okay. How about, have you ever seen the inside of this before? This is state 66, Mr. Harvey.
No.
No, okay. So I'm going to remove these two photographs then from your pile of photos, okay? So take a look at each one of these and tell, any objection to the rest?
I guess maybe at this particular time, just as long as you get a generic.
Sure. Sure. Just take a look at each one of the other photos.
Okay.
Now, can you say to the judge and to the jurors that each one of those photos are photos that you've actually seen with your own two eyes? That's a bad question. Do you recognize what's in the photo?
Do I recognize what's in the photos?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. And do you recognize, well, strike that. How do you recognize what's in the photos?
Because I've seen them before. I mean, I know what these are, but I've seen this. This is,
Okay. And the photograph that's marked as State's Exhibit number 55, you actually have seen that before?
yes.
Okay. And State 67, have you seen that before?
Not specifically, no. I mean, I know those are,
Don't tell me what it is.
Okay.
You've not specifically seen that before?
no.
Okay. We don't want to show that. How about State 60?
I've seen that.
If you haven't, you haven't.
Well, I don't know if it was those specific ones.
Okay, now I'm gonna take that one out.
That
Okay.
was 60?
60.
Okay.
How about 59?
No.
Okay. 58?
Again, I've seen this. I wouldn't have been able to tell you what that was.
Okay, then out of caution, I'm gonna take that one out too.
Okay.
How about 57?
It's kind of the same.
Same thing? No? Okay. And 68?
Same thing.
Same thing, that's all right. So really, States 55 is the only one that you can recognize and identify, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And does it fairly and accurately show what you've seen before that's in that photograph?
Yes.
Okay. This time then, Judge, I will tender States 55 male only.
No objection. Okay, that's admitted.
Okay. I'll put it on this little machine. Everybody can see it at the same time. And can you tell the jurors, what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 55?
It's a little closet that's off the side of the garage with a gun safe and a cabinet with ammunition.
Okay. And if you would touch the screen and show the jurors, where is the safe?
Right here.
Put a little circle so we can really see it good. Okay. And where's the ammunition?
Right here.
This is State's Exhibit number 263. Who's that good-looking guy right there?
That's my husband.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, near the time of this incident, is that the way his hair looked?
Yes.
It's different today, oh, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm going to tender some other photographs. State's Exhibit 370.
370.
Sorry,
All right, 370, I found that.
371,
Okay.
372, all the way sequentially down to 380.
Okay, all photographs?
Correct.
Okay.
Understanding there's no objection, I would just ask to publish them.
No objection, Mr. Harvey, to the admission of 370 through 380. They're all admitted.
We're showing the jury State's Exhibit number 370. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
And what is this?
Diane's office.
Is this the office where you were with her on Friday, September 23rd, before you left to go down to the ranch?
Yes.
This is State's Exhibit 372. You recognize the person depicted in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Who is that?
Billy Corey.
That's Billy Corey.
Is that 371, Mr. Record?
372. This is 373. Who is that?
Jay Grover.
Mr. Corey's right-hand man,
Yes.
as you described it. This is 374.
That's Ken Rickert.
Ken Rickert.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Works at Corey.
Yes.
Now, you talked about a housekeeper. What's her name?
Phyllis Gable,
This is states 379. You recognize her?
yes.
Who is that?
Phyllis Gable,
You also talked about Jenny Calhoun and her husband Les, correct?
yeah, yes.
This is 375. It's kind of dark. Can you make out who the people are?
It's Jamie and Les.
Can you tell the jurors who is Rachel Stiles?
Rachel has been, she worked at Corey for a while and helped with reception work and did some admin stuff for Diane.
Did you see her at the condo that day after Diane was shot?
God, there were so many people up there. Yes,
This is states
yes. Oh, yes.
377.
Yes, that's Rachel.
Do you know a man by the name of James Hugh?
Oh, yes.
Why do you say, oh yes?
I like James.
Who is he?
James worked for Diane, Tex, Billy, Richard Harrell, who also worked for Corey, and he did miscellaneous errands and cleaned cars, and sometimes drove the limo
For who?
for Diane and Tex.
This is states 378.
Yes,
Recognize him?
that's James.
This is states exhibit number 371. Can you tell the jurors if you recognize this person?
It's Bill Crane.
It's Bill Crane. Can you tell the jurors if you know what kind of work does Bill Crane do?
He is a political analyst and does PR.
And by PR, you mean what?
Public relations for different people.
And who was giving the defendant a massage when you saw him there in the master bedroom?
Annie.
Annie. This is States Exhibit 376. You recognize that person?
Yes,
Who is that?
that's Annie.
And Austin's mother. What's her name?
Ann Schwal, or
What was it at the time?
Schwal.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors if you know what was the relationship between the Swalls and the McIvers, specifically Diane? If you know.
It was a good, they were good friends.
Okay. This is States Exhibit number 380.
That's Ann,
That's Ann Schwab.
yes.
Now, I'm almost done. I just have one other area I want to speak to you about, and that is I want to talk to you about an incident, and I'll direct your attention to sometime in the summer of 2016, okay?
Okay.
Just that time frame. And I'm going to ask you if you recall, when did you come down this past weekend to speak with me in preparation for your testimony here this week?
Saturday.
Okay. Is that the only day you came down?
No, I came down Sunday also.
Okay. When you came down on Saturday, were you alone or with other people?
I was alone.
Okay. How about Sunday?
I was with my husband.
Okay. And on Saturday, you were actually in this room.
Yes.
Okay. on Sunday, when you came down with your husband, were you guys separated?
Yes.
And what floor were you on?
I was up at outside Chief Wacocha's office.
Okay.
I'm not sure what floor that's on.
Okay. And you don't know where your husband was?
No.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors, on that Sunday, did you have an opportunity to speak to Mr. Abadi?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the jurors at that time, did you share an incident that you had witnessed at the ranch sometime in the summer of 2016 that took place between the defendant and his wife?
About the Austin's burned finger?
Yes, yes. Austin burned his finger during that. Yeah.
We could take our morning break.
Yes, that would be good.
Okay. We're going to take our morning break, ladies and gentlemen, because it is clear that we need to discuss something outside your presence. We'll try to keep it to the usual 10 minutes-ish. Some of you have already had a morning break, so this should just be bonus time for you to be ready to go. Carter, if you would step outside, we will get you back into court as soon as the break is done. Thank you. All right. Ms. Price, you ready?
Yes, I am.
I'm going to get on the record first. A sidebar we had earlier this morning. Mr. Harvey expressed a concern that the state was seeking to admit prior consistent statements, in other words, bolstering Ms. Carter's testimony concerning what she says Mr. McIver said to her in the hospital about don't get involved, say you weren't in the car. And the state did a few times elicit what was tantamount to prior consistent statement testimony, then went through a series of examples of when there was something inconsistent to the claim that that's what Mr. McIver said to Ms. Carter in the hospital. Mr. Harvey finally was ready to give voice to the concerns he had with a scenario that occurred at the impound lot with Detective Smith. And it turns out that was going to be another prior consistent scenario. And I explained to Mr. Rucker that that wasn't the right time for that if there was an objection, and there was. And so Mr. Rucker steered away from what Ms. Carter may have said to Detective Smith about what Mr. McIver may have said at the hospital. It was rather convoluted, but I think it reflects the concern and the resolution of the concern. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Harvey?
No, sir, I think that's correct.
Okay. Mr. Rucker, anything you want to share with me about what you're about to talk to Ms. Carter about, or have things been sorted out, or should I hear from Mr. Harvey?
Yeah, I think they've been sorted out. I'll know in a couple of minutes.
Should we let you all have a break and then hear back from both sides, or do you want some guidance from me before you have your break?
Can I tell you just what the issue is here?
That'd be great.
The state is going into apparently an incident that was relayed to them this weekend, perhaps Sunday. We got a email with regard to some interview notes regarding Ms. Carter on Sunday evening at approximately 5:30. We got those interview notes, but apparently there was this incident that the state is about to go into that was also relayed to the state this weekend. But we did not get a memorandum or interview or notes or anything of that sort with regard to the incident that is now being inquired about.
So I'm clear. I think I understand what you're saying. Something about Austin Schwall burning his finger, nothing about that in the interview notes you received.
Correct.
So you did get a heads up, here are some more recent interview notes, but they were missing what we're about to hear about it.
And as I understand it from the state, there were two separate, notes. One sheet about the interview on Saturday, and apparently there was another one with regard to this incident in the summer of 2016, which we did not, in fact, get. So I'm going to object to them going into this, having not gotten anything or ever heard about it in the last year and a half.
Okay. And you're going to check, it sounds like, Mr. Rucker, about whether, in fact, something was transmitted, and we'll work through that. Okay.
Directly related. There was two separate, one from Saturday, one from Sunday, and the expectation on my part is that Sunday it was sent. I'm just checking to make sure that we did it, and if we did, I'll steer clear.
Okay. Sounds like everyone understands the guidelines. I'll be back in a few minutes, and we'll figure that one out. Thank you.
Your Honor, everybody's pretty much ready to go.
Okay, great. See if your team's ready, please, Mr. Hyde. All right, let's bring the jurors in. Oh, we need, hold on one second. We need to make sure Ms. Carter is, oh, no, don't bring anyone in yet. I forgot where we left off. Ms. Price, are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
Great. Let's get back on the record. Mr. Rucker, do you have an update? You look deep in thought. I mean, I interrupted, but where we left off, you were going to see if maybe the defense had just not seen an email that was sent, or there was oversight on your team's part.
Right. As I sit here right now, it appears as though it may not have been sent.
Okay.
So we're going to turn it over today, with the expectation that perhaps it would become relevant at a later part in the trial.
Sure. I could think of any number of witnesses whose testimony might make it relevant.
Yeah. And so then we then revisit it at that time.
Okay. When Ms. Carter comes back in, do you have more questions for her, or do you want it just to be set up where Mr. Harvey is ready to start his cross?
I'd like to just maybe close out this section, and just by laying just the foundation that she witnessed an experience with Austin burn his finger at the ranch. I would ask her who was present, but I wouldn't go into any of the details, and then I would transition to my last area.
Okay, so you have an area post the finger burn.
And then I'm done.
All right, I'll let that happen. Based on your representation, you're not going past that.
Right.
But you hope someday to revisit it now that you all have notice.
Well, yes and no. What's the relevance at this particular point without, just to put that in, to say, gee, Austin burned his finger at the ranch in the summer of 2016.
What I heard Mr. Rucker say is that he intends to tie all that together in the future during this trial. So based on that representation, I'll allow it. Maybe we never hear about it again. It doesn't sound like it's something that is particularly problematic to the defense if it never comes up again. But it sounds like there's a good faith basis. The state believes that they will be able to tie that up, but it might not be through calling this particular witness.
If there are other people then that are going to be able to testify to it, then what's the relevance of this witness saying it at this time? I haven't had a chance to look at the memo. I don't know what it says.
Sure. So just as a hypothetical, Mr. McIver could testify. And if he testifies, then I would think Mr. Rucker, if it's established that Mr. McIver was there for that, would be able to ask him about it. And then it's become relevant and it ties together.
Well, generally, if pigs had wings, they'd be eagles. But,
Or buzzards.
That speculation, I think, is still an inappropriate basis upon which to admit this evidence at this time.
So why don't we do this, Mr. Rucker? I think it's cleaner if you just move to your final section.
I got you.
All right. That'll just be the path of least resistance. Let's please bring Ms. Carter in. And we can bring the jury in, please.
Yes, sir. All rise for the jury. Here is our President Calfreano.
Thank you, Deputy. You all may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You may recognize Ms. Carter from her previous umpteen hours of testimony. She is still on the stand. Mr. Rucker says he's got a few more questions he's going to ask her, and then we will transition to the... You guys have your writing implements? You're good? Okay. Then we'll transition to cross-examination. We'll probably break for lunch around 12:30-ish. I don't have any meetings today, so there's not a hard stop for lunch. We'll get to a natural break point. We'll break for lunch. Mr. Rucker.
And given that, Judge, at this time, I think that's all my questions for Ms. Carter.
Okay.
I'll turn her over to the defense.
Well, there you go. Mr. Hartman, if you have any questions, now's the time.
I get evens. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Harvey.
At last, but not least, good morning.
It is.
Ms. Carter, if I ask you a question that's poorly phrased, which I want to do, and you don't understand it, tell me.
Okay.
Just say, I don't get it. What was that question, okay? There is a simple one word that we've heard before. That simple one word is darling. You've heard that word before.
Yes.
You know, you described Tex McIver as a Southern gentleman. Tex McIver referred to Diane McIver all the time as darling, right?
Yes.
All the time.
All the time.
And that's the way that he related to Diane. It would be darling and darling, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. But you met Diane a long time before you met Tex.
Yes.
And Diane and yourself had a relationship early on, correct?
Correct.
A relationship both that started professionally
Yes.
and segued into, morphed into, went into your personal relationship being friends.
Yes.
Did you meet her when she, Diane, was still with her first husband?
No.
Right? And it was after her first husband then, correct?
No, it was way before then.
Okay, well, all right, so you met her before her first husband,
Correct.
and she was married to her first husband while y'all were still friends, correct?
Yes.
And there was a long divorce proceeding that she had gone through. A fairly bitter divorce proceeding, correct?
Yes.
And Diane came out of that particular divorce proceeding, a little bit put off and a little bit hesitant to get back into any other relationships, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You were there the entire time with her, right?
Yes.
She had a house out in Conyers,
Yes.
and at that house out in Conyers, you would travel out there on social occasions and to be with her on frequent occasions, correct?
Frequently.
She didn't have any horses out there.
There were horses out there.
And did you get to ride when you went out there to Conyers with Diane?
Didn't do a whole lot of riding out there.
Okay. Did you have a horse at that time?
No.
And as I understand it, you were there at the inception when Tex first met Diane.
I was.
Diane had a condo in the building that we saw, right?
Yes.
And Diane had moved into that condo. She was living there and kind of just doing her own thing at that particular time, working as she always did,
Yes.
right? And not particularly looking for any relationship at that time.
Correct.
Now, Tex, I guess he saw Diane and immediately started pursuing her, correct?
Correct.
Would you say that he was smitten by her from the beginning?
He pursued her.
He pursued her. And in fact, the way, as I understand it, that he originally met her, didn't he slide a note under her door?
Yes, I was the one that got the note.
Right. You were there. Diane wasn't there. And it was a note that Tex McIver slid under the door, wanting to pursue Diane at that point, right?
Yes.
And you showed it to Diane because you happened to be in the condo at that time, right?
Yeah, I called her.
Okay. And it told her, hey, there's this note here, there's this guy in the building that wants to meet you,
Yes.
right? And would you describe her reaction as lukewarm at best?
Yes.
Because, like we said, she didn't want to get involved at that particular time, having come from a bitter divorce. But Tex persisted, didn't he?
Yes.
And he persisted in that sort of southern gentlemanly fashion that he had, correct?
Yes.
And he has always, when he persisted, always had that gentlemanly southern demeanor,
Yes.
correct? Inoffensive, gracious, would you describe that?
Yes.
And when you saw him, he was generally gracious to Diane and gracious to those around him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And they, Diane and Tex, they dated for a while, correct?
Yes.
Their relationship developed from sliding a note under the door into lukewarmness to, I think, maybe I'll see what's going on with this guy.
Yes.
And it moved from the note under the door to some dates to prior to the time that they got married, they moved in together.
Yes.
When was that?
It was probably more. It was more than a year. Somewhere, maybe 2.
After they first met.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall what year they moved in together? They knocked out the wall, right?
Yes.
They expanded the single condo, correct?
Correct.
They expanded it into 2 adjoining, and not condos, but 2 adjoining spaces. Would
Yes.
that be fair to say?
Yes.
And they then started living together, right?
Yes.
Okay. Diane was working this entire time at Corey, correct?
Correct.
You were still part of their, I guess, group, their friendship group. You and Tex and Diane were a pair, a threesome that did things together. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
All the time.
Yes.
And it was a regular occurrence that you, Tex, and Diane would do things together, right?
Yes.
All right. And I guess their relationship moved on to the point where they finally decided, we're going to get married.
Yes.
Tex wanted to, in the way that he is. You understood that he wanted to kneel down in the woods and get on his knees and propose to Diane, correct?
Yes.
And he wanted to propose to Diane in a romantic setting, out in the woods in a place that they loved. That was out at the ranch, right?
Correct.
Okay. And Tex, he wanted it to be as romantic as humanly possible as he could make it, right?
Right.
And he wanted you to help him actually pick out or design a setting for the wedding ring that he was going to give to Diane.
Yes,
And you agreed to do that.
I did.
Okay, so you knew that things were progressing and they were walking towards this romantic proposal and this marriage, correct?
Yes.
But, you know, this was at a time that you told us that you were drinking.
Yes, that was before I quit.
Yeah, you understand where we are in
Yes.
time, right? We're in time right now before the wedding,
Correct.
correct? And you knew them when they were living together. The relationship was a close one with you three. You were doing things together, but because of your drinking, that stopped, didn't it?
Yes.
All right. In other words, Diane cut you off, is what you told us, I think, yesterday.
She distanced herself from me.
Distance herself. She wasn't going to see you anymore. She didn't talk to you anymore. Y'all didn't do anything together. In fact, you had no contact whatsoever at that point where Diane McIver said, I'm not talking to you anymore. I don't want to be around you. We're not doing anything together anymore. Right?
She said she distanced herself from me.
Right. And did you talk with her after
No.
that? Did you go to the ranch after that?
I did not.
Did you do anything with them once she said, oh, I'm going to distance myself from you?
No.
Okay. And in fact, you had known her for years and years at that point.
Yes, I had.
And you had become what you described as her best friend at that point.
Yes.
You had helped Tex McIver get the wedding ring and get the setting together. And he, Tex, had told you about how he was going to propose, right?
Yes.
But the distance between you and Diane at that point was so great that you weren't even invited to the wedding.
Yeah, we never spoke again after the phone
Right?
call.
So the answer I understand is you weren't even invited to the wedding, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't go to the wedding, correct?
I did not go.
Okay. So as of about 2000, and this was 2005 or 2006, it's 2005 when this distancing occurred, correct?
September
Of 2005. The wedding was in November of 2006, am I correct about that?
No.
Correct
It
me
was-
then, please.
I think it was in 2000. The wedding was in 2005.
Okay, the wedding was in
The
2005.
distancing was the September before the
Wedding,
wedding
okay.
in November.
So then it would be November of 2005. And you didn't get to go to the wedding. And you didn't talk to her in 2005, right? You didn't talk to her in 2006, correct?
Correct.
You didn't talk to her in 2007, correct?
Correct.
You didn't talk to her in 2008, correct?
Correct.
And it is your recollection, as I understand it, that sometime around 2009 or 2010 is when you got undistanced, you got reacquainted, you got back together again.
Yes.
And that was after, was it not, Diane became convinced that you had successfully kicked the alcohol habit. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So I understand that Austin was born in 2006, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the year that Austin was born, you were estranged from Diane McIver.
Correct.
and for several years after that, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you also understand and understood that Diane McIver kept her finances separate from Tex's finances, or you just didn't even know?
I did know that.
Okay. So Diane had her own financial interest. They were kept separate from Tex. And you know, she was pretty private about her own financial interests,
Yes.
right? And she was very, very, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but she was committed to making sure that her financial interests were protected, correct?
Yes,
No matter what else happened, no matter who else was involved, she was very good at doing that, correct?
yes,
Right. And during this particular period, you didn't have any idea, because you were estranged from Diane, what they were doing as a result of the birth of Austin, correct? What they were doing financially. You
no,
didn't know. But when you got back together with them, with at least Tex, well, Diane, when you got back with Diane, you also got back with Tex, right?
correct.
Right. There was really no separating Tex and Diane. They were together, maybe except for in financial matters, but it was always Tex and Diane, or Diane and Tex,
Yes,
right? Okay. That came back together because when you were doing social things, it was always, at that particular time, Diane and Tex, right?
right.
Okay. The ranch, you went out to the ranch and knew the ranch before the additions were made, correct?
Correct.
The ranch was out in Eatonton,
Yes,
Putnam County,
yes,
right? And it's an hour and 20 minutes from the Atlanta, even Buckhead downtown, but Atlanta general.
Yes.
I use that globally, okay? And when you went out there, as I understand it, you would go out there, and before it was renovated, you would stay out there as well.
yes,
And there were plans that were made to renovate it, correct?
correct.
And you were often invited, right?
Yes,
And you took the McIvers up on those invitations, correct?
yes, most of the time I was told I didn't need to be invited.
Okay, well, yeah, you didn't even need to be invited,
Yes,
right? Okay. And by this time, of course, 2009, 2010, you had been introduced to Austin,
yes,
who you hadn't known previously,
no,
right? Now we introduce another element, and that's young Austin, right?
correct.
And in fact, Diane had an affection for Austin, virtually a son, correct?
Yes,
She was the godmother, that was her godson, correct?
correct.
And you knew that when you got back into the relationship with Tex and Diane, that there was this special bond between both Tex and Diane in Austin, correct?
Yes,
I mean, this just wasn't Diane. Tex was involved in this starting back when you first got back into the relationship, correct?
correct.
Tex would help plan the birthday parties. Tex would help do these things to ensure Austin had the birthday parties, that there was a petting zoo, for example, at the birthday parties. It was a joint effort by Tex and Diane, right?
Yes,
Okay. Now, when you started getting back into this relationship, I understand that the ranch had been renovated, right?
Correct?
Now, I said it was an hour and a half away, right?
Yes,
It was deep in the woods.
yes,
There were horse trails eventually.
yes,
There's a barn where horses were kept. Well, there were stalls where horses were kept.
yeah, they were pasture horses.
Okay. And that there was riding involved, correct?
Correct?
I understand that you had a horse down there.
Yes,
And you had a horse, and I think the name of the horse was Savannah.
yes,
Okay. And Savannah, the horse that was your horse, Tex gave that to you, didn't he?
yes, he did.
Okay. And it was a horse, I guess, I'm sorry, I'm not a horse person, that was foaled on the farm, on the ranch?
Yes,
Okay. So there was a foal, a baby, and Tex knew that you wanted a horse. And he gave you the horse, right?
correct?
And, you know, it is part of, again, him, Tex, being part of this unit, and his courtliness, as it were, to you, Diane's best friend, to give you the horse, right?
Correct?
Now, the horse stayed there at the farm, right?
Yes,
And other people took care of the horse on a daily basis, like fed it, brushed it, took care of it, right?
yes,
And ordinarily, that would be some expense, right?
yes,
But your horse got to be boarded there at the ranch, right?
correct?
Now, the ranch is 80-some plus acres, 100-some acres. It's a
Yeah.
big place, correct? And folks would gather there for events.
Yes,
And there were at times kind of like hunting events, right? Sometimes there were politicians, sometimes there were folks that came there to skeet shoot or target practice and other events, correct?
yes, not really hunting on the ranch.
And that's my
Okay,
mistake.
okay.
Target shooting at clay pigeons
Yes.
and those kinds of things.
Yes,
And when those folks came to the ranch for those kinds of activities, there were guns there that those people that came for these events could use, correct?
yes,
And those were some of the weapons that were inside the safe and at the ranch, correct?
yes, yes,
Okay. And you also told us about this shooting mound out there.
yeah,
People would go, you included, Little Austin included, Tex included, would go and shoot into this mound, correct?
correct?
So there was plenty of woods out there. There were horse trails and people could horse ride. People shot weapons out there, including Tex and you and other people way out there in Eatonton, an hour and a half from here in the middle of the woods, right?
Right,
There was also a swimming pool there, correct? And people went swimming there as well.
yes,
Okay. Did you often take your swimming trunks and go swimming when you went out there during the summer, for example?
occasionally,
And oftentimes, sometimes you wouldn't even come back on Sundays, right? You'd
yes,
stay out there on Sunday night over to Monday, if conditions allowed,
yes,
and come back maybe Monday,
Monday
right?
morning, yes,
Right. So that at this particular point in time, and we're talking about September of 2016, I understood But there are often occasions that you stayed over, or they stayed over, or you stayed over to Monday, correct?
Yes,
But I also understood that this was the first time that you rode out with Tex and Diane.
yes,
You always had your own car there, or a vehicle, or rode with someone else who was there, correct?
yes,
So that you would have your own way home. If you needed to get back, you could leave at your own leisure, correct?
most of the time. Yeah.
Well, if you got out there, you would drive your car, somebody had to drive you. You didn't fly out there.
No, sometimes my husband would go. Diane and
Sure.
I had gone down there before,
Okay.
just the two of us.
All right. But, and when Diane and you went down there, you would go with Diane?
Yes,
Okay. So when Tex and Diane went down, this is the first time you didn't have your own vehicle when they were together down there.
yes,
Okay. And I'll circle back to that in a few minutes. During the period before this event, we're continuing to go, almost every weekend?
every other weekend, every third weekend.
Okay, and you would bring whom with you on occasion?
Ava,
And that is your,
great niece.
okay, your great niece. And Ava became great friends with Austin,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
And they would have a great time when they went down to the ranch, right?
yes, they did.
Okay, so it was a great place for Ava and Austin to get together and be in that particular environment, right?
Yes,
It was a wonderful time and a wonderful place for Tex and Diane and Danny Joe, and do you mind if I use that term?
fine.
Thank you. And whoever else was invited to get away from the city, to enjoy those acres that I talked about, correct?
Correct.
That we know was down there. And it was something that everyone, including yourself, Mr. McIver, especially Diane, to get away and enjoy everybody's company and enjoy the ranch, correct?
Correct.
Well, at a couple of days before the weekend of September 24th, 25th of September of 2016, did you talk with Diane that week?
Yeah, I'm sure I usually talk to her every day.
Okay, so every day you would have some kind of conversation with Diane, correct?
Yes,
And every day there was some communication about perhaps either the day's events or even political events, correct?
yes,
Okay, now, Tex was pretty involved, I should say, or in politics.
yes,
And Tex McIver had opinions about politics and strong opinions about politics, correct?
yes,
That he wasn't shy about expressing, right?
yes.
Do you remember whether or not on that Thursday, this is September of 2016, I think it's September 22nd of 2016, do you remember any conversation with Diane in particular?
On the 22nd, so that would have been
Thursday.
Thursday? No.
Okay. There was nothing that you as her self-described best friend on Thursday, that was unusual about your conversation or anything that you can remember about that Thursday, September 22nd, before you went to the ranch, correct?
Correct.
All right, now, I also understand that because plans with Ava and Austin kind of fell through, it was you that called, that reached out to Diane a couple of times, right?
Yes.
And you reached out to Diane to request that, hey, look, I guess Ava and Austin aren't going, but can I go to the ranch? Or one, are you guys going to the ranch this weekend? And two, can I go with you?
Yes.
I'm doing good.
I think you crushed it.
Might leave a mark.
I'm sorry. So it was you. I'm dying here. Here all week. Excuse me. I apologize to you. I'm going to speak to you with something in my mouth, which mothers forever have said do not do. I apologize to my mother. You reached out to Diane a couple of times.
Twice.
It's a couple.
Yeah.
And asked, can I go? And, you know, it was, you don't even need to ask.
Yes.
So, plans were made, correct?
Correct.
I mean, you don't even need to ask. It was a foregone conclusion that nobody would say, you know something? Danny Joe can't come,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Plans were made beforehand. The plans that you made were with Diane,
Yes.
and the plans that you made with Diane was to leave your car at their condo.
Correct.
And you and Janie Calhoun, I don't know these ladies, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use first names if it's okay with you, planned to take Uber, but Janie had to go to the airport, and on the way to the airport, this is on Friday, but these were the plans, you were going to get dropped off at Corey.
Correct.
All right. The plan for you to ride with the McIvers was a plan that Diane said. Or
Yes.
you said, hey, can I just leave my car at the condo?
Yeah, I think I came up with a plan.
Okay,
So I didn't
so-
have to drive by myself.
You came up with the plan. So you didn't have to drive.
Correct.
There's absolutely no objection. Nobody said, Tex didn't say to you, Diane didn't say to you, no, don't ride with us. Right?
Correct.
Right. I mean, it was just an ordinary plan. And the plan was to meet at Corey, right?
Yes.
It was to meet at Corey in the late afternoon on Friday and then zip out to the ranch, right?
Right.
Now, do you know whether it was a regular occasion that perhaps on Friday afternoons or sometime in the afternoon or evening that Diane, maybe Tex, and others at Corey would gather together and have a glass of wine at the end of the day on Friday?
Yes.
That was like a regular occasion. Was it just Fridays? Was it whenever they felt like it? Hey, let's get together and have a glass of wine.
No, I think that was pretty much a Friday. It wasn't a normal occurrence.
Well,
I
pretty
didn't-
much on Fridays, it just,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was a normal occurrence on Fridays. Perhaps my question wasn't very well phrased. But it wasn't during the week, it was at the end of the week.
You know, I don't know because I wasn't there, you know. I mean, I was there a good bit, but not usually at the end of the day.
Okay, but you were this time.
Yes.
And I understand that when you got there, Diane was there, and this was in Mr. Corey's office,
Yes.
and there was, I guess, wine available.
Yes.
You weren't drinking at the time.
Correct.
Diane was having a glass of wine.
Yes.
Mr. Corey was there having a glass of wine.
Yes.
Tex hadn't arrived yet.
I can't remember. I think he came right after I did. It wasn't really relevant, so I'm pretty sure he got there after I did.
Okay. Well, I guess in terms of the relevance, you can't see over here, and I can't see you, so I'm not going to walk over there. Diane didn't seem out of sorts to you, did she?
No.
Okay, well, she was enjoying a glass of wine
Yes.
on a Friday night, right, evening,
Yes.
anticipating going to the ranch with her husband, Tex, and you.
Yes.
So everything was as normal as it could be.
Yes.
All right. Tex came or was already there, either way. But did you see anything unusual that was transpiring between Tex and Diane at this little Friday afternoon social gathering?
No.
All right, so there was nothing outside the ordinary that you knew of on Thursday. There was nothing outside the ordinary that you knew on Friday. And in fact, it was having a glass of wine and let's go out to the ranch, right?
Correct.
Who drove out to the ranch?
I did.
Okay. Were Tex and Diane, were they, you told us about the Yeti cup.
Mm-hmm.
Were they sharing any wine on the way out to the ranch?
I don't think so. It's just we were going out there that day, and I don't remember. The only way that I can remember that I drove out there is because the restaurant that we were going to had changed their parking lot, and I remember navigating through there. But it was pretty non-eventful.
Okay, I guess that's my point. It was non-eventful. There was nothing that you could discern that was outside the ordinary at all, correct?
Correct.
When you got to the restaurant on Friday night, y'all stopped.
Yes.
Went inside, got something to eat.
Yes.
Nothing out of the ordinary in that dinner.
Not that I recall.
Nothing out of the ordinary in any of the discussions the three of you may have had on the way out to the ranch or out to the restaurant.
No.
Ate dinner.
Yes.
About what time do you recall?
7-ish, 7:30.
Okay. stayed there however long it took you to eat dinner.
Yes.
No, nothing, no arguments, no disagreements, no problems during the dinner on that Friday night.
No.
And then you went to the ranch.
Yes.
Got to the ranch in September. Do you remember whether it was light or dark or how late it stays? Light?
It was probably dark, but I don't remember.
Okay. Well, was there any, was there any additional, did anybody have anything else to drink that evening? Did Diane get there or Tex get there and say, hey, let's have another glass of wine before we go to bed?
That was a bunch of questions.
All right. Well, I can break them down, as Mr. Miller says. I can change that. So I'm taking lessons. When you got to the ranch, did you observe anyone else having a glass of wine?
I can't remember.
There was a bunch of wine at the ranch. When I say
Oh,
ranch,
yeah.
there are lots of bottles of wine.
Lots.
And in fact, I think the wines have little stickers on the kind of wine. Do you remember that? There was a big rack, right, where there were a bunch of wines
There's
that
a
were
big
being
rack
kept
in the dining room, and then there's the wine cellar that's
Yeah,
out in the
down-
saloon.
down in the wine cellar facility.
Yes.
Right? And there were a number of different kinds of wines there, correct?
Yes.
Both white wines, right,
Correct?
and red wines.
Yes.
I know that at that particular time, you told us you're not drinking, but you know the difference between white wines and red wines.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know that they, the MacGyvers, had a selection of those wines, correct?
They did.
And that they would enjoy both white wines and red wines, right?
Yes.
Depending upon sometimes what it's paired with, right?
Yes.
Okay. And speaking of what it's paired with, you know, Tex, he was a pretty good, I'm not going to say chef, he was a pretty good cook. He enjoyed cooking, didn't
He
he?
enjoyed cooking.
Okay. And there would often be times that you and Tex would be in the kitchen fixing a meal, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you know, I can see the slight smile on your face because Diane, on the other hand, she wasn't going to cook anything, right?
No.
Okay. And Tex, and sometimes Tex with you, got together and cooked meals for Diane, right?
Yes.
And you would deliver meals to Diane, right?
Yes.
And Tex would do that often. He would get up early, and I'll come to this again. He'd get up early, he'd fix a meal for breakfast, for example. He'd fix some coffee, and he'd bring it to his darling, right?
Yes.
Darling, here's breakfast I cooked for you. Correct?
Yes.
Darling, I made you some coffee. Tex was the kind of man and the kind of husband that would get up, he'd get up early, he'd cook breakfast, he'd bring breakfast and coffee to Diane.
Yes.
Correct? And you know he did that because he enjoyed doing that and wanted to do that.
Yes.
So we're still on Friday night.
Okay.
You get there Friday night and you're anticipating a relaxing weekend, right?
Correct?
You know that you generally ride on Sundays, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And generally, when you ride on Sundays, it's the young, and the young to me.
They're new to me.
But they're not college kids, they're still a little bit older, they're in their mid-20s.
Yeah. They
All right.
both just graduated, I think.
Yeah. But they're not kids in the sense of kids. They're a little bit older. But they are generally there when you ride?
Yes. Since they've been coming to exercise the horses, yes.
Okay, and how long has that been?
I'm not really sure. I mean, sometimes I would ride with, Diane, and I would go out and ride with Javier, the caretaker.
Okay,
I don't know how long they've been coming.
all right. Did you know whether or not they were coming on Sunday?
Yes.
And how did you know that?
We had made plans. I mean, I knew that they were coming. They knew that I was going to ride with them.
Great. Who's the we? Did you call them?
I think Tex probably did. I've got Samantha's number, but I think Tex probably
Okay.
called them.
So, knowing you were going to come,
Yes.
knowing that you like to ride on Sundays, right?
Yes.
Knowing that the horses probably needed some exercise,
Yes.
you believe that Tex called them and arranged for them to come out, meet you, so that you could ride the horse that Tex gave you.
Yes.
Okay. Anyhow, I'm still back on Friday. Do you remember anything else about what may have transpired on Friday? Transpired. Do you remember anything else about what happened that Friday evening?
Diane and I were just laughing a lot.
Laughing a lot? Having a good time?
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, sure. You're out at the ranch. What could be better? Right? Were there any arguments with Tex?
No.
By the way, did you see him drink some wine back at Corey before y'all left?
Yes.
Did Tex excuse himself that Friday night and say, ladies, had a glass of wine, it's Friday, it's 7 o'clock, it's past my bedtime because I'm 73 years old? Was he late? I'm sorry. Could you answer that, please? Do you have an answer for that?
I don't recall that. He
Okay.
excusing himself.
That's fine. Is Tex a late night kind of guy?
Not really.
Would you say that he's a guy that goes to bed early in the evening?
Most of the times.
Okay. And you, I'm going to use the term ladies, not pejoratively, but you and Diane would talk and have a good time. And you told us you always had something to talk about, right?
Correct.
And so some of the things that you all talked about were politics.
Yes.
And sometimes you had a political discussion that Tex became involved in when you all talked politics,
Yes.
right? And you know that if you were talking politics, Tex would always jump in, right?
Yes.
He'd always be there. And if you were talking politics and Tex was there or awake, he'd be part of it, wouldn't he?
Usually, yes.
Okay. Now, September of 2016, that was in the middle of, wasn't it, a political campaign for the presidency of the United States.
Yes.
So it was a particularly, just a minute, political time. Things were happening all the time. There were debates. There were advertisements on TV. Political things were happening, right?
Yes,
It was a time that was heading up to the presidential elections, right?
yes,
And there were primaries in a number of states, and everything was going on, right?
right.
So politics at that time, correct me if I'm wrong, was a frequent topic between you, Diane, and Tex.
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember any discussions that evening, for example?
The Friday,
Yeah.
nothing that stands out. We were excited to see the debates.
They, being Tex and Diane, were excited to see the debate. They were kind of excited and interested and enthused about the political campaigns that were going on, were they not?
Yes,
And they kept abreast of those pretty carefully.
yes,
Tex was involved, you knew, in politics in the state, correct?
correct.
And he had a number of contacts that he would check in with very regularly, right?
Right.
Now, on that Friday night, do you recall whether, and you don't recall whether or not Tex went to bed early and you all stayed up just having a good time?
Yeah, I don't really remember that. He didn't usually go to bed before she did.
But we do know that there was no hint or sign of any argument, disagreement, fissure in their relationship.
No,
Everything was just like it had been for the years that you'd been going out there.
yes,
And there was nothing that was confided in you that evening about their relationship, their finances, or anything like that, correct?
correct.
Well, we I guess went to bed on Friday night. You
Yes.
stayed upstairs in the main house.
Yes,
You stayed upstairs in the main house with Austin. And not with
No,
Austin,
he was
sorry.
here.
In Austin.
in Austin's ring.
That's my mistake. Is that right? All right. Now, Saturday, was there anything planned for Saturday?
Running errands and going to the grocery store.
I'm sorry?
Running errands, going to the grocery store, having lunch out somewhere.
All right, well, let's break that down a little bit, if you don't mind, because this weekend is what we're talking about. Do you remember what time everybody got out?
Diane was a pretty early riser, although the ranch was a later time, so it was probably 9:30.
Okay. And when you say the ranch was a little bit later time, it's because it was a little bit more relaxed.
Unless we had a hunting engagement, and then it was the crack of dawn.
Okay, I'm sorry, any hunting?
Unless we were hunting,
I
yeah,
thought you said,
or
that
something.
you told me earlier.
Not there.
Okay.
We'd have to drive to wherever we were going.
Okay. But not at the ranch, there wasn't a hunting obligation?
Right.
Okay. But there wasn't anything that you knew about?
Not that weekend.
The plan had been, was to get up leisurely because you're at the ranch.
Yes,
The whole point of going to the ranch is to be able to get up leisurely, correct?
yes,
Nobody was there, none of the kids were there, none of the grandkids were there. Everything was, y'all planning a leisurely weekend.
yes,
And I also understood that whenever it wasn't snowing or raining or anything like that, Tex and Diane would play golf together.
yes,
And one of their regular activities was playing golf together.
yes.
Just like you told us that they did everything together, Tex would say, darling, I'll bet you, they had little bets on their golf games, right?
Yes,
And he would talk to her about playing golf, correct?
yes.
And you knew she was a hell of a lot better golfer than he was, right?
She's better than a lot of people.
Lots of people, but we also know she was a hell of a lot better than Tex, right?
Yes,
And Tex would scramble just trying to either keep up or get below 100. Do you know that?
no,
Okay. But you knew that Diane was a better golfer, correct?
yes,
And you knew that they always went together to play golf on Sundays when they were out there.
a lot of the times.
Okay. So Saturday morning, on that Saturday morning, did Tex get up early, do you remember? And fix breakfast?
On Saturday, he would get up early and fix coffee. And I can't remember breakfast that Saturday.
Okay. Do you remember, when you say he fixed coffee, do you remember whether he brought you coffee?
Yes,
On Saturday, he brought you coffee?
yes,
Do you remember him bringing coffee to Diane?
I'm sure he did.
Okay, because he always did.
Yes,
And he would always say, darling, here, so I made you some coffee. And it was almost expected of Tex to do those things, correct?
yes,
I mean, we just figured, old Tex, he's gonna do that, he's gonna make us coffee, right?
right,
So we don't have to bother ourselves with any of that, right?
right.
Okay. And is it your recollection that he did that on that Saturday?
Yes,
And did you all eat breakfast there or go out to breakfast?
I don't remember breakfast. I remember lunch, but I don't remember breakfast.
All right. You got in the car
Yes,
in the King Ranch that you told us about?
yes,
That's the car that you drove out in,
correct.
right? And you drove that car, correct?
Yes,
Parked it at the ranch,
yes,
right? And Saturday, you went in to do grocery shopping?
yes,
You were getting groceries for either Saturday night dinner or Sunday breakfast?
both.
Okay. And do you remember where you went?
To shop,
Yeah.
Publix.
Okay. In Edenton?
It was Publix that's out closer to Reynolds Plantation. I don't know if that's, is Eatonton right there? But I do believe it's Putnam County.
Okay. Which covers some
Yeah.
geographical zone. I guess the point is, there was nothing going on. Nothing going on again Saturday. Nothing going on Saturday that would indicate that there was any disagreement, that there was any problem, that there was any argument between Tex McIver and Diane McIver, right?
Correct.
Okay. Y'all ate lunch out?
Yes,
A lunch at a restaurant?
Mexican restaurant.
Okay. And after lunch, went back to the ranch?
Yeah, we actually went to Publix after we ate lunch.
Ate lunch
And then we
first.
went to the ranch.
Ate lunch first. Then went to Publix. Then went back to the ranch.
Yes,
Get back to the ranch mid-afternoon, late afternoon?
yes,
You know, it was a college football weekend, right?
yes,
The reason that you were there by yourself, notwithstanding the kids, is that your husband, who you've shown us a picture of and told us about, he went to the Georgia Ole Miss game.
right,
He went to the Georgia Ole Miss game, and that was at that time down in Oxford, Mississippi.
correct.
All right, and where the dogs got hammered. What was it, 45 to 14? You
I don't
remember?
remember.
Okay. But, just ipso facto. That's where he was, though. So he wasn't around that weekend.
No,
and you were enjoying a weekend out at the range.
Right.
Do you remember whether you came back and watched any college football that afternoon?
I'm sure that's what we did before dinner, because there was so much of it on. We were waiting for the LSU Auburn game.
Okay, and because Diane was an Auburn fan?
Obnoxious. She was an obnoxious.
She was an obnoxious
Auburn fan.
Do you know what the N in Auburn stands for? Knowledge.
No.
Um,
Alabama.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. But Diane was a big Auburn fan, right?
Yes.
So you're sure, at least in your memory, that she's going to watch the Auburn LSU game.
Oh, yes.
Who won that game?
Auburn.
Okay. And everybody, I mean, it was happy, it was good. Auburn's winning, y'all having a good time. You're sitting there watching the game. You had gotten some food. Did Tex help you cook that food?
Tex actually cooked dinner that night by
Tex.
himself. I didn't help.
So here is, once again, the courtly Southern gentleman, Tex McIver, in the kitchen. In the kitchen, the ladies are watching football. This is a turn of events. The ladies are watching football. Old Tex is in the kitchen slaving over the old stove. Right? I mean, slaving. But he enjoyed that. That's what he did. Right?
Yes.
That's what he wanted to do. He wanted for you guys, and no disrespect, you and Diane to have your time, and he was going to take care of you, right?
Right.
Tex wasn't a big football fan, was he?
Oh, yeah, he was a fan.
Georgia fan?
No, TCU.
The Horned Frogs, right? That's where we went to school.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Horned Frogs. Well, that's their nickname.
Mhm.
Kind of like the Georgia Bulldogs, right? And the Auburn.
Whatever.
Yeah, okay, good. The Auburn whatevers. That's exactly what I say. But he wasn't watching the game, and if he was, it was like by himself. I don't know whether is there a TV in the kitchen?
There's TV in the kitchen.
Okay, so Tex is in the kitchen. You don't even know whether he's watching the game, but he's fixing dinner. Did he bring dinner out to you?
We were upstairs, so we all went down and got everything up.
I'm confident Tex came up and said, "Ladies, darling, dinner's ready. Y'all want to come down?"
Probably.
Did Tex and Diane have a glass of wine?
Yes.
Do you know what kind of wine? Red, white,
I'm not sure.
rosé?
I'm not sure. It may have been white because we had fish.
Okay, because that's what you pair with fish, generally
Yes.
speaking, white. All right. There was fish for dinner. It's likely that you don't particularly remember, likely that they, Diane and Tex, had a glass or two of white wine that evening,
Yes.
right? After dinner, who cleaned up?
Diane usually cleaned up, but I probably helped since I didn't cook at all.
Okay. Was that the deal? Tex would cook and they would clean up? Sounds familiar. Except for reverse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That was the general run of things?
Yes.
Okay. What happened after dinner?
Diane and I got on the floor and we're doing these Pilates things with this
Okay.
apparatus.
All right. So you guys exercised after dinner?
Not a whole lot.
All right. When you say that a whole lot, 5 minutes?
No, we were down there for a while. She was trying to teach me something.
Okay. Let's say it lasted 20 minutes, a half an hour or so.
Yes.
What'd you do after that?
Went to bed
Okay, so it was a pretty early evening,
fairly early.
pretty relaxed day. It's another, what you would describe as a wonderful day down at the ranch.
Yes.
It was, again, nothing that indicated to you, was there, that this was a day that was any different than any other day that you had been down at the ranch.
Correct.
Okay. And now, we've gone through the Thursday before, the Friday before, the Saturday, and now we go to bed fairly early. It doesn't sound like you guys stayed up past 10 o'clock. Don't know. All right. Everybody went to bed, right?
Right.
Okay. The next morning, though, Chef Tex was in the kitchen early, wasn't he?
Yes.
Okay. Chef Tex was in the kitchen early. He made breakfast that Sunday morning, right?
Yes.
And he brought breakfast, either he brought breakfast, but he brought coffee, at least we know that, coffee to you and to Diane that Sunday morning.
Yes.
Okay. And the breakfast that Chef Tex had cooked for you, do you remember that? What it was?
Sage sausage with jalapenos, fresh jalapenos.
Sage sausage with fresh jalapenos?
Yes.
Okay. And was that downstairs in the kitchen?
Downstairs, yes.
And did you all come down there and say, oh, this looks great, this smells great, thank you, Chef Tex?
Yes.
Okay. And had breakfast, right?
Right.
The plan for that day, as I understood it, is you were going to ride Savannah.
Yes.
That's the horse that Tex gave you and was kept out there at the farm, right?
Right.
And you also understood that the young couple from Athens was going to come over and either ride with you, help you ride, help to exercise the horses, or all three.
Yes.
Okay. And that Tex and Diane were going to go golfing, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you got up, you had the prepared breakfast, and tell us what you did at that time. After breakfast, what did you do after breakfast?
I went upstairs and got dressed to go riding.
Okay, because it was about the time to go riding.
Yes.
And that would have been somewhere for you around noon or 12:30?
Yes.
Somewhere around there.
Yes.
Noon or 12:30?
Yes.
Okay. And generally speaking, you knew that Tex and Diane usually had a 2 o'clock tea time.
I didn't know what time their tea time was. I think it was usually earlier.
Well, did you go to ride before they left? Do you remember?
I think I went down out to the barn and to the corral around the same time that they were leaving.
Okay. And they were leaving to go play golf,
Yes.
right? They left separately.
Yes.
Did they leave in the King Ranch?
No, I had that.
Okay. To your knowledge, how did they get to the golf course?
I guess they took the truck.
Okay, but you don't know.
Well, I think that's the only other, I know they didn't take one of the four-wheelers out there, so,
Well, okay.
yeah.
But you didn't see them.
No,
Okay. They took the other vehicle that was out there.
right,
The King Ranch was with you.
right,
It was there.
yes,
Did you have the key, access to the keys?
yes,
Okay. And it was just parked there at the ranch.
yes,
So They left. They left, to your understanding, to go play golf. You went to go ride, right?
Yes.
And when you ride and the young folks had come over, do you remember whether the horses were, they were in a corral, they were warmed up, they were outside? Do you remember?
They would come down and saddle the horses. It was a pretty cushy riding experience. I didn't have to put the saddles on.
All right. Pretty cushy riding experience. You had your horse, you had people to exercise the horse, not you, but Diane and Tex kept your horse, the horse that was given to you, right?
Right.
You had a team, lady and a man, to come over and exercise the horses,
Yes.
correct? That when you got there and went to ride, either with them, they would get the horses out, they would saddle the horses up, they would have them out there moving and getting ready to go on a walk,
Yes.
right? Now, this was September of 2016. It was pretty hot out there,
It was
wasn't it?
in the 90s.
Okay, it was in the 90s that day. So a horse is going to get lathered up pretty quickly.
Yes.
Correct? You know what I
Yeah.
mean. You're going to get hot and sweaty, not even doing anything but sit on the horse in the sun, if you're in the sun.
Correct.
You get hot, you get sweaty, you get tired.
Yes.
And especially if you're in the sun and the sun is beating down on you, you were wearing a hat, you were wearing a cowboy hat,
Yes.
and that's what you usually wear, is that right?
Yes.
And that's what you usually wear, especially when you're walking the horses or riding the horses in the hot sun.
Yes.
Okay. And it's your recollection that you walked for hours?
Yes.
Okay. And the ranch is big enough that there were trails out in the woods, away from folks, away from everybody, that you could walk the horses for hours? But you
Yes.
could do that, right?
Yes, there's a couple of miles of trails.
Okay. Well, horses are fairly big animals. A mile on a horse doesn't take all that long.
No.
When you say a couple of miles, do you just keep going around the same trails and going around in circles?
No, it's real hilly, and so there were lots of different trails, and you really couldn't see from one spot to another.
Okay, it was wooded enough that you couldn't see, or distant enough that you couldn't see from one place to another?
Yes.
So there are places out there that you could be walking the horses or out there doing whatever it is that you're doing, where people couldn't see you.
Yes.
You couldn't see other people, correct?
Correct.
And there were plenty of those kinds of places at the farm.
Yes.
At the farm, at the
Right.
ranch. But you know what I'm talking about, right? And after this, what you tell us you think is hours of your walk in the afternoon, you come back to the main house and to the ranch, right?
Right.
Swimming pool open at that time of year? It's September.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
Did you say, okay, man, I'm hot and sweaty, been out in the sun for an hour and a half, I'm gonna take a dip in the pool?
No, I had made some plans I had some stuff I needed to do before they came back.
Okay, when you say you had stuff that you needed to do, was it business-related stuff? Did you have to make appointments? Did you have to confirm appointments?
No, I was going to, it's a local judge, I was going to his house to pick up some venison. And, because I was going to make 36 quarts of chili.
You
And-
made 36 quarts of
Quarts
chili?
of chili.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. And it was a local judge?
Yes.
All right, so I guess my answer is, when you got back, my question is, when you got back, you didn't go swimming.
No.
Did you clean up and take a shower and say, I'm going to see the judge, or I gotta get this stuff for the 36
I
months?
did clean up. which is one of the only times I've ever done that.
I'm sorry.
I did clean up. I
Okay.
usually don't.
All right. And then you drove the King Ranch
Yes,
out to meet this judge,
yes,
and to pick up, I guess, provisions,
yes,
provisions for the children.
Yes.
Were they in the King Ranch? Did you put them in the King Ranch?
yes,
Okay. And did you bring them back to the ranch?
I did.
Were they still in the King Ranch?
Yes,
Were you going to bring them back to Atlanta?
yes,
So one of the things that was in the King Ranch were provisions for making 36 gallons, pots, whatever, of chili, right?
yes.
Okay. Now, did that include meat?
No, it was the venison. I was going to get all the other stuff. It was
Okay.
just the only thing I didn't have that I couldn't buy at a grocery store was venison.
Okay, well, my understanding is venison is meat.
Yes,
Okay. So you got the venison from the judge.
yes,
That venison, I guess, was on ice, or it was in dry
yes. It was
ice?
in a
or
cooler.
ice?
It was in a cooler.
Okay. Another Yeti?
I don't know what kind of cooler it was
But
in.
it was in the, I'm going to say the way back.
Yes, the way back.
Okay. All right. When you got back, I guess, did you call the judge? And
No.
say, hey, Judge, I'm coming over.
No,
Had you pre-planned that you were going to meet the judge?
yeah. Yes, Tex had called and I had the code to get in his gate. So,
Tex had called. He had made it so that you could get in and pick up the venison, right?
correct.
So you didn't even have to see the judge?
No, he wasn't there. His wife was there.
Okay. Did you see her?
Oh, yeah, we hung out. She paints and I paint, so we hung out for an hour or more.
All right. So you went to another place. Tex had arranged for you to pick up some venison, which is deer meat, right?
Right?
And you hung out with the judge's spouse,
Yes,
talked for a while,
yes,
got back in the car with the venison in the way back,
yes.
and went back, right?
To the ranch.
But the plan was, and you understood that when Tex and Diane finished playing golf, they were going to come back to the ranch, get you, and y'all were going to head back to Atlanta.
Correct.
Now, I understood from what you told Mr. Rucker that, Diane was kind of fastidious about everything that she did.
Extremely.
Okay. And that what would happen, as I understood it, is that y'all had already packed up
Yes,
whatever luggage or bags that you had brought or were bringing back were already ready for easy retrieval when Tex and Diane came back from the golf course.
yes,
And those items were ready to go.
yes,
And that at approximately 6 or 6:30 that evening was when they were going to come back, and you understood that approximately that time was when y'all were going to just hop in the car. They were going to hop in the car in the same clothes and in the same outfit that they had been playing golf in. I mean, it's not, hey, we're going to take a quick dip in the pool. Hey, we're going to take a quick shower and freshen up, because the plan was we're just going to head back to Atlanta.
yes.
But you hadn't eaten since breakfast.
I had an avocado.
I'm confident that that filled you up so that you couldn't even
Not
move.
really.
But you had one avocado, right? But by that time, you were starving.
Yes,
And you didn't know whether Tex and Diane had taken any time to eat at the club or to drink at the club, right?
they actually told me they'd eaten some, like a protein bar or something like that.
Okay, well, I'm talking about
Not much, no.
eating. And so between y'all, there's a protein bar and an avocado.
Yes,
Right. And I guess I think I remember, you told us exactly what you had. You knew what you wanted, because when we get there, we ain't there yet time-wise chronologically, but you were hungry for a steak.
yes,
is the bottom line at
Oh,
this
yes.
point. And you were hungry, right?
Yes.
And again, it's another typical day, another typical Sunday at the ranch. And we'll talk about that in a second. It was a wonderful, wonderful day. Wasn't it?
It was very nice day.
And this was the end. Everything had been storybook. It's just like the story of your life, the story of your lives. The ranch, the horseback riding, it's a pretty cushy deal. It was another wonderful day in the life of Diane McIver, Tex McIver, and Danny Joe Carter. I'm going to use Danny Joe again. Okay? You tell me if I can't do it.
No, you can use it.
All right. I want to be in the same footing as him. Okay? All right. And that's true,
Yes.
correct? All right. So, do you have any idea whether either Tex or Diane had had anything to drink down at the club?
I don't know.
No, so, right, you had no knowledge of that at all. When they came back in order to pick you up, get their stuff, booked down the road to Atlanta, did they have anything to drink there?
At the ranch?
At the ranch, yes.
Yeah, the red wine and the Yeti.
Okay, well, did they, okay, at the ranch, did you see him pour the red wine into the
Yeah, we were at the island in the kitchen.
Okay, and tell us who the we is?
Tex and Diane and I.
Okay, all right, you were at the island, in the kitchen, and this is when you were going to come back to grab your luggage. I mean,
Yes.
Your luggage. And then head down the road.
Correct.
Right. Who broke out the old bottle of wine?
I'm not sure.
The Yeti is a little, it is a,
That a demonstrative you shared with the state?
Copy return. Oh, it's even got the word Yeti on it.
it's got Don. It's like that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It was all silver though.
We
Yeah,
saw the pictures
okay,
of it, and
okay.
and I'll ask you in a minute, but I'm just
Yeah,
for demonstrative purposes.
For the record, I don't have any objection.
Thank you. I wasn't even going to give you the chance. Something like that, right?
Yes.
I mean, you got to open it up and you got to pour stuff in it.
Right.
But, you know, the Yetis are supposedly pretty good stuff. They're pretty expensive,
What are you?
you know. Did you see who got the bottle of wine out and said, oh, you know, I think I'm going to fill this, you know, what we used to call a to-go cup
A roadie.
back, yeah, or a roadie back in the day?
Yeah.
Do you remember who suggested that? It wasn't Tex,
No.
was it?
I don't remember.
Okay. And do you remember whether they had any glass of wine, anything other than something from, you know, you strike that, let me start again, please. You gotta have a bottle to pour some wine into this.
Right.
This is to take. Do you remember whether they, either Tex or Diane, had a glass while you're standing at the island filling up the old roadie to head down the road?
I don't remember that.
Okay. And you don't remember, or do you remember whose idea it was to do that?
I don't remember that.
But what we know, so you hop in the car,
Yes.
up in the old King Ranch, right?
Yes.
Diane is driving, correct?
Correct.
Diane is driving, and you're in the front, you are in the front passenger seat,
Yes,
okay? And Tex is in the back seat.
yes,
He's in the back passenger seat, correct?
correct.
There's stuff, and we saw the stuff that was, for example, your red blouse
Yes,
was hanging on the driver's side,
yes,
correct? There was Diane's pocketbook on the left rear seat, correct?
yes,
So the natural place to sit for Tex was in the back seat behind the bucket seat, the front passenger bucket seat.
yes,
Right. And that's where he sat.
yes.
Now, I'm going to keep the old gadget here. I also understood maybe that while on the road home, you leave the ranch, you get on I-20, and you start going home on Sunday night.
Yes,
Again, there's nothing that can be said about the day and the weekend at the ranch other than it was wonderful. It was a great day.
yes,
Diane is driving and the Yeti is there in the console. They were passing the Yeti back and forth.
yes,
Diane is taking sips of the Yeti while she's driving down the road.
yes,
Okay, I just want to understand that while Diane is driving down the road, the Yeti is there, she's having some sips of whatever wine they may have put in there. Tex is in the back seat and he may have sips too. At least you saw him passing it back and forth. Right.
yes,
And do you recall that while Diane was driving and passing the Yeti back and forth, how many times that happened?
no,
How long do you remember it took you to get from the ranch to where you were going to meet or eat, which was Longhorn in Conyers, right?
approximately an hour.
Okay. And there had been an arrangement, at least as far as you understand, for Tex and Diane and you to meet Craig Stringer.
Yes,
Well, he had played golf with them. You knew he played golf with them regularly,
yes,
right? There was an arrangement that you all were going to meet him there for dinner.
yes,
All right, so now we've got you with the McIvers. You got Craig Stringer, who played golf with them that afternoon. He's going to meet them at Longhorn. But, you know, when you got there, it was a little bit more crowded than you thought it would be. You were starving. Y'all wanted to get seated, but there were no seats.
right,
So the idea was, and I don't know whether it was you that suggested it or Diane that suggested it, but that you all go into the bar and have a drink while the table was being readied or became available.
yes,
And when the three of you went into the bar, did Diane, to your recollection, order a glass of wine by the glass?
yes,
And did Tex, or did Diane order for Tex, which would not be a glass of wine by the glass? In other words, they didn't order a bottle there in the bar.
not at the bar.
And it would be something that Diane would do, wouldn't she? You know, I'll have a glass of wine, and so will he. So will this guy over here. So will Tex. Just get him the same, one of the same things.
I don't,
You don't
I know they
remember?
both had a glass of wine.
Okay. But you don't remember, do you? Or you don't remember who said, we'll take 2 glasses of red, we'll take 2 glasses of white, whatever it might be, right?
Yes,
I mean, that's, you either remember that or you don't. But you're sitting at the bar, and you're waiting for a table to become available. And you're talking, right?
yes,
And you're reflecting on what a wonderful day it was, correct?
yes.
And you're reflecting about perhaps the golf game. Not you, because you didn't play golf.
No, we were talking to the bartender about politics.
The bartender about politics. And again, politics is one thing that Tex gets, I hate to say excited, but he gets involved in the discussions. And if there is a political discussion going on, Tex is going to be part of it, right?
Yes,
And he chimed in, and he was giving the bartender and you and whoever was within his earshot, his view of the political events surrounding this debate season and leading into the presidential elections, right? Correct?
right,
And Tex had strong opinions about that, correct?
yes.
And did you see him drink, did you see Diane drink the entire glass of wine?
I wasn't really
Paying
paying attention.
attention. Did you see Tex drink an entire glass of wine?
I wasn't paying attention.
Okay. So as far as you understand, you don't know whether anybody finished a glass of wine. They had been passing the Yeti back and forth. They went y'all went into the bar, ordered some more wine. Is there a bar tab? Was that paid for by cash? Was that folded into the, you know how you can transfer the bar tab to the table? Did you see
Yeah.
anybody? I'm sorry.
There was a bar tab, but I'm not sure if it was added to the dinner table or not.
Did you see anybody pull out cash, credit card, whatever? Now, Mr. Stringer wasn't there at that time,
No,
but you remember that Mr. Stringer pulled out his personal, even business, whatever it might be, his credit card, and he's the one that paid for dinner.
I do remember that.
Okay. Well, we don't remember who footed the bar tab or what was ordered.
No,
Okay. But was there anything, once again, was there anything while you're sitting there talking politics with the bartender, and bartenders are supposed to be good listeners, about the conversation, about anything else that led you to believe that there was anything other than the wonderfulness of the day?
nothing that stood. That was a great day.
Table became available.
Yes,
You all went to the table.
yes,
If I recall correctly, you waited for Mr. Stringer to appear, to come?
yeah. We had to wait for a little while. He had called to say where he was. Diane doesn't like to wait.
And I'm sorry, do you remember who he called? Did he call Diane?
No, I don't know if he called Diane or Tex.
All right. But he was on his way, he was going to be there in a few minutes, right?
Yes.
Did y'all order?
I'm sorry?
Did y'all order? I know you remember what you ordered, but did you order before he got there?
I know we all ate at the same time. And it's not usual for us to order and then wait for somebody else to get there and order. It's possible that we found out what he wanted and ordered it. but I don't really remember, but we all got our food at the same time.
Because there was nothing, again, that would distinguish sitting at the bar, sitting at dinner with Mr. Stringer, to distinguish this from any other time, any other weekend, any other time that y'all had been to the ranch, correct?
Correct.
Perhaps this would be a good stopping point.
Is it a good stopping point for you?
Me?
Yeah? Okay. Works for you, Mr. Hartman?
Yes, sir.
You're about to pivot away from Longhorn. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will start our lunch break in a minute. Any reason you all couldn't be back by on that clock? Nope.
Just very quickly while I have the court's attention, yesterday you referenced a page number in the defendant's statement, and I was incorrect in my representation back to you. We can talk about it whenever, but I think it's on.
The request from the state, and my question was whether if you look at 54 line 3, based on the copy I have, the transcript says Cal Leipold says, actually, we left at 6:45. And then Mr. McIver said, I don't see an issue with that. I mean, it's hearsay in the sense it's what Mr. Maples is saying. It's not an agency issue because now that you've keyed in who it is, it's Mr. Maples saying, actually, here's what I did. That doesn't make it not hearsay, but it may be something that the defense isn't concerned about. The statements attributed to Leipold, but really Maples, are setting forth things that this jury's already heard about. It's 54 on the transcript from words expressed, and the state had asked for 54 line 1 through 55 line 6, and I had said that whole excerpt is appropriate, but I was confused as to how Kyle Leipold could be saying the things attributed to him. I thought it was maybe Mr. McIver saying those things. It sounds like it's Mr. Maples saying those things. All the things attributed to Mr. McIver, so it would be line 13 on that page.
Probably should speak outside the record.
I see she's here. This is okay. I'm not getting into content.
Okay, all right.
I don't see an issue with any of it, but certainly not an issue with line 13, page 54 onward, because those would be Mr. McIver's statements. Okay, so when you have this promised conversation, you guys can sort out whether the Maples lines are a problem. Ms. Carter, you're good for lunch. We'll see you back here a little bit after 1 o'clock. Please don't talk with folks about your testimony while you're enjoying your lunch. Okay? Did you have anything else?
And Mr. Samuel and I discussed this morning, we're going to continue to do so, but I think we'll have something agreed upon before we get to that.
Okay, great. Anything from the defense? I've read your requested jury charges.
Your Honor, the state does have one other question. You briefly took argument about the motion to quash the subpoenas for the news reporters that the state was intending to call.
Yes.
Is there anything else that the state needs to provide in order for us to get room and anticipate getting to these witnesses this week?
Well, what you needed to provide everyone, me, the attorneys for the reporters, is what is it you're looking for? Because that was less clear when I went around and around and around with miscounts. And so maybe when we get back a little bit after 1, you can say, this is what we want, this is what we envision asking Mr. Diggs. This is what we would ask Mr. Winnie. That would, I think, allow me, we have to get those attorneys back in here to close the loop on that. Then we could pivot to the concerns Mr. Samuel had raised about 106 and those statements. And I didn't really hear much at all about Snyder, and then there's someone from New York. Oh, Meredith Hobbs, we heard about.
Mr. Schneider.
Mr. Schneider is in New York.
Right.
The AJC.
Okay, and so that's a print issue with him, much like with Ms. Hobbs, it's a print issue. And then with Winnie and Diggs, it's video. Okay, so maybe, here's what I'd like to do. When we get back a little after 1, you could tell me specifically what it is you want from those 4 folks. And then we'll need to get, I think it's only 2 lawyers. I think Ms. Counts had 2 of them, and then the lawyer from Kilpatrick had the other 2. We can figure out when they could be here, maybe end of day one day, and work through that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay? Mr. Samuel? Okay. Keep stretching. We'll see you guys a little bit after 1 o'clock.